On today's episode, we are going to take a closer look at the Georgia real estate market. This episode is appropriately titled The Real Estate Roller Coaster, Market Trends and Predictions. As a professional, I like to know and associate with other realtors that know their stuff, and our guest today is definitely in that category. Sharing her knowledge with us today is none other than Miss Tan Taylor. Let's get into the episode. Welcome, Tan. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start with the big question. What are you seeing in this market?
Well, I'm happy to say that even though you have appropriately entitled this segment or this episode with roller coaster in the name, what I'm seeing now more in the market is us kind of coming off of the big jumps and drops that a roller coaster typically provides, but we're going more into a stable market where we're seeing some normalcy. And quite frankly, Stella, we're pivoting more from the robust sellers market where sellers were pretty much able to kind of have their way, so to speak. And now we have transitioned into more of a buyer-centric market where sellers need to be aware that they have to make their property and their offerings attractive to the buyer market.
Yeah. Are you also seeing what I'm seeing that's been sort of a hard adjustment for sellers? It's been, something quite different from what they were used to, say, 2-3 years ago. Thanks to COVID, interest rates had to drop dramatically. So they were able to sell their homes for whatever they wanted almost.
Right. That again, they were able to have their way. And so when you say, has it been hard for sellers? I think that really the question is, what should we be doing as agents, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So yes, it has been a different type of conversation, but a conversation that we should be having all the time. So for sellers, it has been more of a conversation about educating them about how the market has turned and how it has transitioned into being more buyer-centric and why that's the case. I think that in my experience in the most recent months, sellers have been pretty staunch on, I want this, I'm not doing that. And it becomes okay, I'm gonna let you get that out. Now let's talk about some facts. Let's talk about if your goal is to see that property off the market sooner than later, then here's how we do that strategically, competitively, and accurately. Because high emphasis on the accurate part, because I think pricing in this market has been a little bit of a challenge because we are comparing from even the market of the spring, the market of the winter months of this year. So that's been what we need to do as agents to try and prepare our sellers for where we are now in the market.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And buyers as well. But
for sure.
More so for sellers with especially pricing.
Yeah.
That's important because we're seeing so many more homes stay longer on the market now than ever before. And one of the reasons is pricing. But sometimes we do have to accommodate the seller's wishes and let the market do what the market does. Exactly.
Right. And, you speak a little bit about days on market. Now in the Atlanta Metro, we're looking at an average range of about 41 to even 50 days in some areas of the Atlanta Metro, with days that a property is sitting on market waiting for the right buyer to come along. But part of that has to be that we have to look at data and say, okay, what have real sales looked like? And by real, I mean where a seller introduced a property to market and then a real buyer came and actually spent money. What did that look like? And so I think presenting that data to our sellers helps to refine and place emphasis on why it's important to accurately price.
Absolutely. Because many of our sellers go on websites. I will not name the websites. Don't. We will not name the real estate websites, and they get sometimes their numbers from there.
Yeah.
And those are marketing websites. So we have to be careful and really do those comparables, like you were stating, of what homes are really selling for.
Yeah.
In your neighborhood, in your area.
Right.
So absolutely. You hit that right. Exactly right. So what do what makes you hopeful though in this market? Because, people are still buying homes. People are still selling homes,
Yeah.
So what makes you hopeful and then what makes you nervous?
Let's start with the good. So I like that you asked what makes me hopeful first. What makes me hopeful is pretty much what you just mentioned, and it's that buyers still see the value of investing in real estate and purchasing property, right? So there's something to be said about moving from a non-owner to a person who invests in the real estate market. And I use the term invest, I think, a little bit differently than some agents, because even if you're purchasing a property as your primary residence, you're investing in that. And if you're a first-time home buyer, I always say this is your first investment property, because the length of time that you're going to stay there probably won't be 20 or 30 years. So you're making an investment, hoping that it's a smart one. And if you've partnered with a great agent that gives you accurate information, then you're doing that. So what makes me hopeful is that there are still a good, robust number of buyers that want to purchase real estate. And then on the flip side, there are still sellers who are interested in bringing their properties to market because maybe they need to sell for one reason or another. Now, what makes me a little nervous, I won't necessarily say nervous, because that won't be consistent with how I feel. I think what I would like to see more of is our sellers be more educated about what would help them reach their goals. Because if you are owning a home or a property and you've made the decision to sell it, then you have a goal, whether that's meeting a certain bottom line. Maybe you need to relocate. Maybe it's too much house. Maybe you don't need the commercial space anymore. But there has to be a goal in mind. And so with that being said, I would like to see more sellers be educated about what the process looks like and what the current climate of the market is, so that they can reach their goals and not have the frustration of, why is my property not selling? What can I do? We need to start having those conversations up front. But I will tell you, I would also like to see more inventory.
Yeah, so more inventory would help. And speaking of that, that's a great segue to one of my questions here. And that has to do with new construction.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you seeing in new construction? I know even in my area where I'm living, I've seen maybe there are 3 new subdivisions going up in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
And that's a good sign, right?
It is. I think that with new construction, what's happening is they're answering the demand of, we need more inventory. I think, though, and I'm going to be very diplomatic and walk a tightrope here.
As we must do.
I think in doing that, though, new construction home builders still need to make sure they're in tune and in touch with what the current buyer market is looking for. Now, this is what I mean. I think new construction is doing a great job of hearing the call of buyers don't need necessarily a ton of space anymore. I'm seeing a lot of buyers who are saying, I don't need a 4,000 square foot house, or I don't need a ton of space, or we can do more with less space because we're downsizing, or we're modernist, or whatever. So I think new construction is doing a good job of bringing forth functional spaces. They may attract more ready buyers if they had a little bit more attractions attached to the spaces. So I don't know. That's what I'm seeing with new construction, but I am seeing a lot of it. And like you said, that's a good sign, because it's answering the demand of us needing to have more quality, more quality inventory for our buyers.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely do need more inventory. Absolutely. Now, we've talked about educating our sellers. That is very important. We also need to educate our buyers.
For sure.
Because you've heard the term, I'm sure, marry the mortgage and date the interest rate.
Yeah.
We get a lot of questions about, well, I'm waiting for the interest rate to go down. And historically, you and I, we've discussed this before.
We have.
Interest rates right now are actually on average what they've been historically.
Yeah.
But we've gotten used to, or we were used to, the COVID times when interest rates were 2.3 or 3%. That's not coming back. That's abnormal. So how do we explain that to buyers? Do we just, tell them that exactly? Like, that was not the norm. What you're seeing now is leveling, more normalcy coming into play.
How do you educate your buyers?
Well, I talk about what was happening when that occurred. So we talk about the economic conditions that we were living in when that was happening. And then I also educate my buyers on if they're on the fence or on the line about, I'm waiting on interest rates to drop, or Tan, do you think they're going to drop? I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did, because I'd be a lot richer. But what I'm educating my clients on is that on the economic conditions that were occurring, and where we are now and where we've been, and what is predicted to happen, not by me, but but people who are a lot smarter than me. The predictions that if rates do continue to trickle down, then we are going to see an uptick in home sale prices, right? And so then we have to paint the picture of, okay, if you're waiting on a significant reduction in interest rate now, and you're willing to just kind of let some time elapse, then also expect that there's the potential for that house price to go up, and it changes your buying power in terms of what you're looking for currently. Yeah. So I do a lot of illustrations. I have great lender partners who actually help to bring into play illustrations to help buyers make educated, informed decisions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now, how are switching to our, new generations now?
Yeah.
Our millennials and our Gen Zs, how are they reacting to this market? Because many of them are first-time home buyers.
True. I'm a millennial. I'm a later spectrum millennial, right? I'm an 80s baby. And then when you talk about Gen Z, I think research has already shown us that millennial age and Gen Z aged people are buying homes and buying properties in general at a much younger age than their counterparts, right? So I'm saying that, and they aren't afraid. And we talk about Gen Z, they'll, because we like to call them the microwave generation. And I don't mean that as a dig in this conversation, because what makes that a plus with what we're talking about now is that they don't hold back on pulling the trigger. They see it, they want it, they go get it, right? And so we have to be ready to receive them in that way, to make sure we're stewarding that ambition to purchase property, to take big jumps and to jump off the porch, as they say, so that they are successful. So as far as millennial and Gen Z buyers, what I'm seeing is just a readiness to do it sooner than maybe their parents or their grandparents.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would be your best advice right now for buyers? Because, we get the question, well, is this a good time to buy?
Yeah.
And, my answer is always, in real estate, the best time to buy was yesterday.
Yeah.
How do you respond to your buyers when they ask you, well, when's a good time to buy?
Well, I ask them again, hold on, let me get my crystal ball. No, seriously. So I came out of healthcare, right? So I'm innately tied to goals and goal setting. So when buyers ask me about if it's a good time to buy, what are my thoughts on it, I take them back to the goals that they shared with me, and we keep those very centric. And so if your goal is to be in a primary residence where you and your family, or just you, are going to stay, then we talk about timeline. We revisit the timeline. If you are an investor, we revisit your goals of whether you're going to invest in something short term, renovate it, and reintroduce it to market. We talk about what the bottom line is, what your goals are. And I think that's the answer to that question. It's not a yes, it's a good time, or no, it's not. It's a let's talk about your goals again. Let's revisit that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because a first-time home buyer's goals is definitely different from a retiree
Stark contrast.
goal.
Yeah.
And of course, an investor's goals.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. So now that's for buyers. What will be your best advice for sellers?
Take a deep breath and take your emotion out of it for a second. That would be my opening line to sellers as far as my advice is concerned, because all sellers have a bias towards their property, and there are feelings attached to it, rightfully so. So that's I understand that. I've sold my personal property before. I've sold homes that I've invested in and flipped. And so I understand the feeling of this sense of pride about something that you acquired, you took care of, and now a little part of you feels like you're giving it away or letting somebody else steward it, right? So then you attach a value to that. But as a seller, you have to look at data. And so my best advice to sellers would be to same advice to buyers, make sure you're partnering with agents who are data driven, who are presenting data so that you understand where your property should be priced, how it should be marketed, and what you should expect if you're following that plan. Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely. I love take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
I had an emotional conversation with a seller just last night.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you have to have those moments, let them have those moments.
Yeah.
Because this is, for many, their baby. And the largest investment, one of the largest
Yeah.
investment that most of us are going to make.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Take the emotion out of it, but let them have it if they have to at some point.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just do the best we can.
Yeah.
You
And understand both sides of the spectrum. So like you said, you had an emotional conversation with a seller. And then if I'm in that transaction with you, I'm also having conversation with the buyer about the fact that it may be emotional for the seller. I just closed a property a couple of days ago. I represented the buyer, but the seller was widowed. And so she's selling a property that she'd raised her family in. We want it so that my clients could raise their family in and retire into it. So there's this emotional tug of war with, it's mine, I'm giving it to you, I'm letting you have it. And then we forget that we're doing business. And so there has to be a recalibration of take some of that emotion out for just a second, handle the business, and then let's reconnect with what you're feeling about what just took place.
Absolutely. I love it. So you've been a realtor for, remind me again, how many years?
About 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. What's been your best experience as a realtor? Or you can, answer, what do you love most about being a realtor?
Okay, that may be one and the same. What I have enjoyed most about being a realtor and what my best experience has been the revelation of connecting what I was doing in healthcare to what I am doing in real estate. And so for some, there's this disconnection between me having been a therapist and now, being full-time in real estate. But all of it for me is about service. It's about serving the people who I'm blessed to be a part of that leg of their journey, that part of their life. And so I think the biggest and the best part about being in real estate for me is just realizing that you can do what you're purposed to do regardless of the context. And so I'll put a period right there. I think for me, that's what it's been. It's been a beautiful reckoning of there being purpose in either setting because I'm still doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Awesome. And so now just a little bit more on market predictions,
Crystal ball.
Just the crystal ball time. And the crystal ball, it was announced there may be a couple of more interest rate reductions at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Maybe, we don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So, and I was having this conversation last week with a client who also studies the market. He's a very smart man. So I was having this conversation about what I think is going to happen. If we do see those promised point reductions, then you need to be kind of perfectly timing when you enter the market if your goal is to not pay more for the same type of house because you waited on an interest rate reduction. Because again, the prediction is that we're going to see points drop, but then
What's going to happen with the home value, the price of the home?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's why we stay on the roller coaster. So we're still on the Georgia Cyclone, even though now
We're just cyclones. I love it.
shout out to Six Flags. So we're still on that, even though we're in a little bit of a lull if we're using this roller coaster analogy, because right now we're kind of waiting. And so I think right now we're a little bit more stable, but if we do see that reduction, I'm going to say may, I won't say are because I can't predict it, but if we do see a reduction in interest rates, we may start to see an uptick, and buyers will need to be a lot more strategic with how they enter the market and what they're looking to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. My advice to buyers would be, if you are ready to buy and you see a home that you love, buy the home, because you can always refinance, right?
Yeah.
You could always refinance. So date the interest rate and marry the mortgage. I love that.
Right.
Tan, you've been just a wealth of knowledge. I always love talking with you. Final few words.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to just share my thoughts, because sometimes it's like you have this saying of, if my opinion counts for anything. But thank you for letting my opinion count for something today with you, right? So thank you for allowing me to share my experiences. And I would say final words are, if there are any buyers and sellers who are looking to really understand real estate, this is really, all jokes aside, it's not a plug for selling.
Right.
It's a plug for service.
Right.
So if there are any buyers and sellers out there who are looking to partner with a competent agent who understands the market trends and understanding data, then find me.
Tan is coming on my show to recruit y'all. Hey,
To
but you know
serve.
what? But that's why she's here, is to give her knowledge. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. So I have appreciated it very, very much.
Thank you so much for watching today's show. And remember to follow our show on this channel by subscribing below. And leave a comment to let me know your best takeaways from today's episode. Please also share this episode with a friend. I love building a community that's always learning, always growing, and always your universe for all things real estate. Until next time, I'm Stella Harris, and I'll see you soon.